Glasses off. Spine upright. Release the legs down. You must sit high enough that that can happen. If you sit too low, hip muscle structure tightens just to stretch your spine. So make it so the spine can come up and the legs go down. Not just the front leg, but the butt, the back leg. The inner structures in the pelvis that attach the leg have to be able to lengthen. If that thigh can sit and the buttocks descend, this section, see what I'm touching here is the base of the rib cage. This finger is like the false ribs, and this finger is right up at diaphragm level. So if you sit with a collapse, these ribs are down and also maybe slightly back. So the act of grounding those thighs and lengthening this front spine as well as the back is the act of, do you see this, the rib cage coming up. The act of lengthening here gives you in the inner body the lift of the rib cage and guess what, the diaphragm, as well as drawing the spine up. So you create space here by lifting this front spine and diaphragm. Then shoulders back, shoulders release down. So when those shoulders come down, we have a tendency to drive some part of the rib cage down. So avoid that. Come up again through this side rib cage, lift the side ribs, let the rib cage widen and deepen, and let its inner surface lift, inner surface lift up to the top chest. This hand is not just describing the side and front rib lift. It's also describing the lift behind the lungs, the back lung, back rib cage. Let those shoulders, arms descend. Join your palms. Draw your attention in and adjust yourself in order to release the breathing into all these compartments: pelvis, abdomen, chest, throat, head, spine. Let the, not just the arms, not just those legs, but also all of the back spread, all of the nerves that connect, let them spread away from the skull, away from the spine. So you feel even this middle back between what you know is the arms and the legs. Now, See if you can listen instead of addressing with words, thoughts, any of this. Just now, be in this posture and listen. In this quiet listening space, pay homage to the sage Patanjali and all teachers following him who have brought this practice to us. Bow to those teachers. Raise your hands, raise your head, open your eyes, stretch your legs, and take a comfortable pose for a second. I choose Upavishta Konasana because for most of you, it helps you sit upright more easily. If it is not true, you need to either take more higher support with the hands, or you could even back yourself up to a wall. So you have, this is a pillar here, but it's my spine. So you can be in this pose. Okay. Take your arms to the sides. It's not just a sort of slouching pose. Take it as a genuine posture and make note of your tendencies. One shoulder touches the wall differently. One buttock. Don't force the low back to the wall. Lengthen the spine. Likewise, don't push your head to the wall. Okay. Yoga is an undertaking in body, speech, and mind. Okay. So we typically pay attention clearly in asana to the body. And the teacher, take your one arm up. Go ahead, take your right arm. Right arm. Press the right thigh down. So we take up an activity and the teacher gives instructions with words, teacher speech. And the student's mind receives that one way or another and translates it into action. Can you stretch up taller away from that right thigh? So you really open space in the outer right hip. Push the right leg down. Lengthen the right outer hip up. So you get these verbal instructions and your mind receives, come back to the center, and the body acts. Okay, change sides. Stretch up tall. Stretch the left leg and the right leg. And then keeping that left thigh grounded, begin lengthening from the pelvis up and away. From the pelvis, so you feel the inner groin stretch, and you feel some kind of stretch on this outer hip. The outer thigh sits down and the leg stretches. So I'm giving you these pretty, not refined, but they aren't gross level instructions. Stretch your arm up, stretch your leg down, come out. So there's a lot of verbal stuff going on in between your mind and your body. And some of it is coming from me, my words, my instructions. And some of it is your commentary internal, because you're muted. You might be saying it out loud, but it's you talking to yourself there. Your commentary. So in your mind, you might be saying, ow, or yay, or you might be doing something else. You might be, well, I'm not going to give you ideas. You've got plenty. They're your thoughts. Baddha. So this verbal mind is a player. Even when I'm out of the picture. Takes whatever support you need to help that spine. Bring the heels in close, protect your knee. I should do this. I'm still offering to tell people, if you need it, how to knot ropes easily so you can make yourself a knee rope, even if, or a rope to hang from a door knob, so you have a kind of, in some circumstances, a substitute for a rope wall. Anyway, I can show rope knotting. So can the internet, but anyway, Baddha. Trunk up, right from the inner body, thigh down. So lean to the side and first use your hand to get that thigh. It's like you're using this saddle of the thumb and finger to go over that thigh bone and press it down and out, down and out. Okay, it can go toward the knee, but it certainly starts at the hip. And if you can go farther, you can go farther. And you study the exhalation and the inhalation. Now, don't go so far that you feel joint pull. You got to feel like the muscles close to the joint stretch and there's no sharpness come up. Sit up level. And then change sides. So I start out on top of the blanket, so the angle in the pelvis is not great. And the stretch here is not so much these ribs as I'm really focusing on this side pelvis, both the outside and that inside surface of the hip and groin, down to watch the exhalation, the buttock muscle descends. You can go farther if it's happening, if it doesn't interfere with the other knee. So I'm pushing here because that helps me relax. Then, if all goes well, two hands pushing. Okay. All right. Come back to symmetry. and then come out. So the point of the study here today is to examine your internal commentary, whatever it is. And you don't have to, in fact, you probably shouldn't discuss it with me, because as soon as you start discussing it, you stop observing it, and it goes out and it stops being internalized. And we're looking at yourself here. So let's see. Do Adho Mukha Svanasana with the strap, with whatever support suits you, but be prepared for 2 minutes or so. You can come out and rest and go back up. Okay? Stay as long as suits you, remembering, and this is difficult for people to get, as those arms extend away from the skull, going in a downward direction. They do the same thing when you're on hands and knees, away from the skull and away from the spine. And when you come up in dog pose, that action continues. It looks like it's reversing as you push through the arms, and the spine goes back to the heels, but you are still keeping that skull and the sides of the neck disengaged, so that the stretch of the arm doesn't go toward the head. Okay. Even though your arms are overhead, none of the push goes toward the head. It goes out the arm, and it stays away from your skull. Okay, walk your feet further back. Yes. Feet further back, okay. And raise the heels. Yes, look at that, more space there. Try an inch further back and see how the pelvis responds. And keep the heels up and the thighs back. Don't push the lumbars to make that pelvis long. The buttocks go back, the thighs go back, the whole leg goes away from the skull. The whole arm stays away from the skull. So come forward to Uttanasana and feel free to take support under the hands. Let me rephrase. Everyone take support under the hands. Tall bricks at first. So in theory, everybody has an easy or easier time. Stretch the arms up straight, so you really are in Ardha Uttanasana. And move those shoulders, that is to say the roots of the arms, away from the skull, and push the arms down away from the spine. Not so you feel the spine get, or those muscles get taut, but so that you feel the spreading. Spread the nerve, spread the muscle. And down here in the pelvis, we talked about when you were seated, there is this thing that happens through the ribs as those thighs go back and down. The spine comes up and the front spine releases the lumbars and the diaphragm. So this rib cage comes up and expands, and that gives lots of inner body, organic body space. Lift those ribs. Don't just be neutral in the ribs. Come out for a second. Anatomically, the muscle we're talking about is the psoas. In gross terms, the whole psoas system. Do you all know the psoas? Yes? No? Okay. So you know for a fact that the psoas is connected to your top inner thigh, and it goes through the interior of the pelvis, and part of it fans out against the inner wall of the hip blade, and part of it goes not to yours, it goes in front of the sacrum, but then it attaches to every lumbar vertebra all the way up to the rib cage. And the importance of that is twofold. First, that psoas muscle is not just attached to your bones, but it's attached to the discs between the bones, the intervertebral discs. So if you're really tight with psoas, it's not just pulling bones together, but it's directly talking to the discs. This isn't great when wrong. Second thing, it fascially, all its connective tissue that connects it to also connects it to the diaphragm. So when you lengthen the psoas muscle from the groin up that front spine, the direct effect should be, if it's going well, to open and release the diaphragm muscle. The diaphragm muscle is anchored at your spine and it fans forward. So when you release it at its root, it can spread out and forward. You understand? This is what you're doing in this pose when you go like so. Stretch the legs. That's it. And it's breathable because it's a postural thing. It's not, I'm not sucking my lungs to do this. I'm not doing pranayama. Now, if you need to, you take a chair. So you are, bring your bricks underneath your shoulders, vertical arms. Now, legs stretched down to the floor, which is direction 1 away from the skull, and 2 is they press back horizontally, that top thigh goes back. That's so the hips move back, but you anchor them back, straight legs. Come up on your fingertips, gay. Yes. Now you start with lengthen the neck in line with the skull. And with an inhalation, you're going to thigh back and use that inner body extension through the ribs. Feel it by spreading, lifting the ribs away from the hips. Yep, it's growing a bit, child. Yep. And it's independent of the breath. Thighs back, buttocks back. You're not muscularly sucking the abdomen in, but you are you are using everything to get length in the psoas. So muscularly widen the ribs, muscularly let go of any downward pull in the trunk. Keep breathing. All right. Now, as you can, lower the bricks. Keep that sense of proximity to the spine, the front spine, extension of the front ribs, front spine, side ribs as you bend your elbows and go lower. Those buttocks stay anchored toward the heels, legs very stretched, Gay. Stretch your legs. The legs have to stand away from the skull. And in standing so firmly, there is that inward, upward from the ground release that takes the inner body toward the spine. And you, using your breath, can draw the inner body longer forward, headward. Good. Let go. Prepare to stand up. That means those legs go toward the floor as the spine comes toward the ceiling. So stretch your legs, roll your buttocks down, lengthen that spine. It doesn't have to do a back bend. It doesn't have to get rigid, but it's just got to come up from the pelvis. Stand up. Trikonasana, another side hip stretch. Use a chair so that you can take it in two stages. So the two stages are like this. You come up close under that chair leg. So yes, the preliminaries we deal with, and turning the legs. Even here, we have to think of this side hip, even before going into the pose. So now I'm going to say this leg, back heel, has to stay anchored to the ground. There is a feedback that gives lift to the trunk, that lengthening, deepening stretch of the trunk. Now, I'm letting you hips, because I need your focus here. The front leg stretches to the ground, and the outer thigh goes to that hip socket. Both hip sockets go away from the skull. So this one is going away from the foot, away from the skull. This one is going away from the foot and away from the skull. The abdomen is long, and there you are at your chair. As soon as you put your hand on the chair, the legs can give up some of their strong work. This is the way the mind works. It goes, ah, huh. Go farther out if you can keep the leg action. Stretch this outer thigh, outer hip. Maybe the elbow comes down. Don't be ambitious. Be correct. Look, I'm widening my stance because it helps me take this side back to its proper length. It got short. When I widened my stance, I could do more. Take your top arm up, spread your elbow, bottom elbow, top elbow, and wrist away from the spine. Inhale, come up, establish those legs. If they disestablish themselves, and then turn your feet, bring your feet together. And you know what? Turn around, because I want to see your back. So just don't move the chair. Yeah, make it so I see in the camera your backside. I could see it at an angle. And Julia Littleton, if there were a way to light you from what's now your backside a little bit, that would give me a clearer view. The other, and it's not so much that, okay, that's cool, but the lighting is from actually shadow back a bit. Great, I think that'll work. Lovely. Wide stance now, because it helps the movement in the hips. Stretch those legs away from the spine, away from the skull. Do with your arms as you will. Use them to help or make contact. Back leg, front leg. Bend from the hips, taking the pose, lengthening that outer right thigh. Keep the left thigh fully turned so it can stay away. So Gay, Gilroy, now I get a different view of you than I usually do. You got to move that outer left thigh much more. Take your left hand and push your left outer thigh away from the chair and the wall towards your right foot. Push so your left buttock bone goes towards your right heel. Go out as the rest of you can. Stretch your leg. That's better. Now turn that top pelvis. Lift the right side of the pelvis, okay? Right hand on the right top pelvis and pull it away from your heel. Grab hold of your top hip bone, and pull it, turn it, stretch it away from the outer heel. All that outer hip muscle has to lengthen. And the elbow goes down if it's able. Keep your Julia left leg straight. Chaya, left leg straight. Karen, left thigh turned. Who's this? Suzette Baldazzo. Also turn that left thigh. Okay. Inhale, come up. I gave you possibly 10 seconds of silence to observe your own mind and commentary. So Prashant describes the nature of these commentaries in again, yogic terms. Your internal commentary, my teaching description, and your internal commentary can be Rajasic, Tamasic, or Sattvic. These are the very traditional divisions of like what we typically say is the qualities or properties of all natural phenomena, all of them, including the mind and matter. The mind, by the way, is matter. Your neurology is matter, so it's not a separate thing. Okay, so the characteristics of your thoughts, as well as your actions, or my teaching and or your response to it, you understand it's so complicated, can have qualities that lead toward transcendence. They can be transmundane, beyond the ordinary. That would be more a sattvic feel to your words. Yes, you can unmute.
Can I tell about three gunas for a human being?
But please.
Yeah, we have three gunas for we have tamas and rajas and sattvic. Okay, and rajas, tamas is the tamas guna people. They hurt other people and they hurt themselves and they don't know what they're doing. So tamas people and rajas people, they grow themselves and they help the other people also, that guna people. And sattvic, if you do yoga, we became a sattvic. You service other people and we serve our body. It goes to kaivalya. Kaivalya means like divine God.
Yeah.
So I know this much. We have three gunas. Every person has a three gunas: tamas, rajas, and sattvic. Finally, you have to come to sattvic. Sattvic means we are very kind ourselves, kind with other people. We do service like that. Thank you for the opportunity.
Ant's description of this is, as you say, thank you. He says, as you say, the sattvic mode is a sattvic act, right? Which is what we're doing in asana. So don't necessarily distinguish between an act of generosity and like, you know, giving a homeless person assistance as different from Urdhva Hastasana. It's in essence, it is no different. And your a sattvic act in an asana, as much as Chai is saying, a sattvic act toward another is an act of prashant words, virtuosity, purity, piety, tranquility, sublimity, nobility, not in the status or, you know, crowned head of state conscious sense. Nobility in the sense of what nobility was supposed to mean, which is an elevated character. Transcendence, same thing. Transmundane, that is sattva. Unselfishness. Also, in the end, it is illuminative. It is related to wisdom. It is, in physical terms, it's the characteristic that lends itself to wisdom. Rajasic mode is an act with ulterior motives. Now, they can be good or bad, but it's ulterior motives. Hectic activity, vibrancy, turbulence, sense gratification, pleasure seeking, And he says kinetism, which has to do with, I think it has to do with just an attraction to movement. A tendency to movement. So this Rajasic mode, you've got to interpret these words in the body terms, breath terms, and thought terms, and with respect to oneself and with respect to others. Tamasic acts are acts of delusion, infatuation, laziness, languor, torpidity. Now, it seems like an opposite thing, but in Guna terms, it's not. Viciousness and wickedness, they are tamasic. The people can be extremely actively vicious, but the root of viciousness is in tamas, not rajas. And perversions. Now, he doesn't mean kinky sex perversions, but the distorted view of how things work, a perverse view of how things are, which can lead to many. Okay. So you gotta examine the character of your thinking and your body's responses, some of which are verbal and some of which are physical. But when you, and this is important, when you notice the words you're using, and when you use your verbal mind in your practice, you will influence your practice. This is part of the path. You don't just, we say, chitta vritti nirodha, so ignore the words you might say, but the process involves listening to those words, right? The end path, the end of the path is silence, but getting there, you've got to be able to make conscious and focus what's happening and understand if what's happening is heading you in the right direction. I talk too much. Adho Mukha Svanasana one more time. So you re-examine this. Take your hands forward, day, longer distance, longer still, you'll feel it in the spine. Open those armpits. So are we having bits of languor, torpidity, laziness? Are we having experiences of sense gratification? Is there some hectic activity coming into this because things might be falling apart a bit? What are the characteristics of your actions? What are the characteristics of your thoughts? They are related to each other. What are the characteristics of your breath? Now, with the focus of your breath, with the use of your exhalation and inhalation, with a intelligent, focused, mindful direction of the breath, can you sort that excess, that hectic activity? Can you remove ulterior, conflicting motives? Release, come out. This is why people chant mantra all the time, because it helps organize and the attention. So it is a way of sort of steering rajas, tamas toward sattva. All right. I want to do forward bends. Okay, so we're going back to sitting on the floor. Oh, you know what? Let's do one more active thing. Get yourself in a dog pose with your heels at the wall. Then get a little bit closer, like a hand span closer. All except for Gay, who keeps her distance because it's usually a little short, so it'll just stay. Then one foot comes up the wall, and if you look, sorry, I'll show on this side, the knees have to be together. So if you raise your foot too high, your knees come apart. If your foot's too low, the knees come apart. So make the knees match. Put your foot on the wall. Lean in, look at the floor, and do half handstand. In a crouch, knees bent. Now, admittedly, it is difficult to keep the neck and head released, but use those upper arms. Roll your triceps. And don't be picking up the head and searching for anything. Keep letting the head go. Chaya, is that okay? Okay, good, I see you. Stay as long as you like, but be examining the nature of the work. You want this pelvis sattvic. The legs have to employ the vibrancy and movement of the rajasic mode, but not so much that they disturb everything else, but enough that they release that pelvis, lengthen that pelvis. So you use your powers. Okay. So you're now. I have a cat in the way. The Upavishta Konasana. And you just have some X-ray vision through the cat. Stretch your legs. Oh, I should have said, it's somewhat important, especially if the flexibility isn't there, that you have a strap, something with which to catch your foot. So don't disturb your animals. And I did have a knee rope and some blankets. So you have some tools. You have a chair if you need it. we're going to bend the knees. So if you need a knee rope, you have that. And you can have as many as 2 straps if we do any wrapping or rotational type work. Okay. Are you prepared? And if you need to be seated on blankets, sit on blankets. Make it so your spine is at ease. Now, this is the crease of the top thigh where the leg goes down. We did this earlier. You've been here before. Feel free to reset this if you like. Eyes down. See, wiggling my feet. This is me putting some rajas into that leg so it moves away from my skull. So what my brain is doing, right? It's focusing. All right. This is your right leg, right arm. Keep opening that right hip. As you go towards your left leg instead of behind it. Do not go behind it. If anything, your hand should be in front pulling. Okay. Push that thigh. Lengthen your trunk. Maybe you can rest your elbow on your shin. Come out. Come out by pushing that thigh down. Side 2 can start with the hand behind, stretching your left leg, lengthening the left side of the pelvis. See that those buttocks are going away from the skull and out to the heels. Then you come in front, and that helps the lateral stretch. Now you get to a comfortable but lateral stretch. Stretch your elbow, okay. Watch me for a second. Remember that description of that psoas muscle lengthening. This hand, I'm describing that deep lift and extension, and it happens on both sides, so that you can come down to your elbow without loss of space. And the arm can go overhead. And instead of taking more pose, going to the floor, put more space in the groin and turn. Buttock down, right buttock, left buttock down. And then you come up carefully, operate from the legs, keep control. She's relaxed. Sit up straight. Now, we're going to turn it so that you're going away from the right. I have to move her. She's too cute, but I have to move her. There. You have to make it so that from this buttock descending and reaching toward that heel. This buttock goes down and toward that heel as the pelvis bones And the psoas muscle lengthens toward this foot, right? Psoas muscle is doing that scooping up to the diaphragm thing as the buttock and the outer hip is lengthening to let that leg stretch. Buttock descends. Back thigh reaches to your heel. The groin in front lengthens down to the floor and in and up to that diaphragm. It should feel like that lumbar spine decompresses. Both sides. Makes it easy to roll toward the leg there, parallel to the floor. Any amount of forward bend you take involves that inner body being able to, including the inner surface of your pelvis bones, being able to move, even as those outer muscles which run the legs are doing the leg thing. So inner body toward the trunk, outer body toward the feet, both sides. Inhale, come up. So Iyengar describes the buttock in this pose and in a lot of seated forward bends as going from a kind of a roundish shape, especially if it's like bunched up in a Janu Shirshasana. He calls this a melon shape. And then when you really stretch that buttock forward, he says, it becomes a cucumber. It stops being like a round melon and it becomes a long, and that's a good description of the muscle. The muscle is bunchy and short, and it's especially bunchy if you're gripping the buttock, if you're making the leg action come up, so put it down. Bend the right knee rope. If you need one, you can use a strap instead. Strap is just a belt.
Devon, we didn't do the twist to the other side.
In fourths and then, beg pardon. See, talking too much. Turn. So you should be going to your other side. If you're following me, you're going to the left side, stretching the right thigh down, lengthening the right buttock from its round. Any kind of bunchiness, let go of it. It's got to release away from the spine to the heel, like a roller is rolling it soft. And as it does that, and the grip on the pelvis loosens, that pelvis can turn. It can follow that forward bend over the left leg. And you keep over the right leg, beg pardon, and you keep stretching the left leg away and let the side pelvis travel. Turn the ribs. Lengthen that inner body. So don't yank it so you feel particular pains. You've got to come up high enough that there is instead a general lengthening. From that length of the psoas and the lumbar spine and the expansion of the rib cage. Depth of the groins, you go forward. Come up. So if your knees are good, awesome. You can sit on the floor. Let's say I hope you're, show of hands, low back, okay? Yes, 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 yes. Low back pain, don't do this. If you've got low back pain, you will take Supta Baddha Konasana. Pretty close, so that lumbar spine has a bit of a curve and the front surface extends. So don't do it like this, flat down. Do it letting that chest open. See? Okay. The rest of you, we're going to take a Baddha Konasana, forward bend. You need perhaps a brick, or I'll take this from the side, a chair. She's running with the mouse. She's got the mouse. So the chair, for those who have stiffness in Baddha Konasana forward bend, you will take Baddha Konasana. And you might use the chair to come forward. Now, that's a start. For those who can do more, the procedure would be the same as usual. These thighs need to go down. And in the way of the standing pose, that inner thigh goes to the heel, and the outer thigh is tucking into the hip socket to give that release to the pelvis. If you watch, I'm holding my feet and I'm pulling, so I get some support for the length of the trunk, that inward upward. Do not try to pull your spine concave. It is convex because the back body is always releasing away from the skull. Arms too. So as you go down lower, it could be that your forearms will touch these thighs, or you could switch it so the hands control those thighs. But the trunk comes forward, the bones roll forward. When you get to the support, the chair, the brick, and if you're very flexible, your forehead might go to the floor. Do not do it at the expense of knees or hips, though. Ambition, find out this, right? This pose makes people mad. They get angry at their tight hips. Some people really try to be aggressive about these hips. Not only are you mad at them, which is a tamasic kind of thing, but you're really frustrated and you really want to do something. So you're agitating, you push on your knees and pull your spine forward, and be aware of that. If that's what's happening, let it go if that's what's happening. What's your motive here? Go back to your motives. Now, come up. Now it's 9:06. We have to wrap this up. So your first job, everybody, is to lie back, let your spine be at rest. Then everybody now is going to take Supta Baddha Konasana. And let me just show 1 second. If you cannot, for knee reasons or any other reason, if you can't actually raise your hips up and tuck those shoulders under and get in this pretty close pose, then you take your strap and you put it around your ankles. Sorry. You put it over your ankles and pull it through so you have ankle straps. Now they can be farther away or as close as you need them to be. And you bring the soles of your feet together and your arms still hold on to the straps underneath your outer thighs, hips. So you're in Supta Baddha Konasana, close in, holding those ankles. So you feel your back has sort of bloomed up into a bit of a back bend, chest and shoulders. The lumbar spine, that front lumbar is extended. Now, gradually let the hands and the spine go. Don't rearrange yourself consciously, except let go the tension and pull at the arms. The only act here is to attempt to sneak your hands out from underneath your hips. So don't try to raise the legs, right? It's your hands that are trying to escape underneath your passive buttocks and pelvis. So the hands slowly come out and your buttocks should fall straight down. And if you're tucked up really tight, your pelvic floor will drop almost onto your heels. And that is just fine. Don't rearrange, let them be. Settle. Now, in this shape, with the shoulder blades tucked in the back of the neck long, the chest open, and the front spine open, can you turn your attention to that back spine and the spinal compartment and let that innermost spinal compartment lengthen from tailbone to skull? It's not really going to shift you on the floor outwardly. But it's again going back to that sense of direction of the nervous system. And then your arms can come without disturbing those shoulder blades or even loosening the upper arm from the floor. Let your arms roll out far, meaning they come away from the body at about a 45-degree angle, but they're kind of still rolling, dragged by the sticky mat. And you bring them out somewhere comfy, whatever that is. Don't go too far. Keep settling. By now, you will know if the spine is happy and actually can extend. If there is lumbar trouble, Chaya, I know back bends can bother you. Have you taken care of things? I don't see the floor here, but you're good. Okay. All right. Now we're all coming out. So with your hands, help lift your thigh bones, right? Go around the other leg and lift your thigh bones up, helping your knees together. And roll to your side, come up sitting. Put one blanket under your spine and another blanket under your head. Now, those Chaya, I got 3 minutes to show you this. 3 blankets, one folded for the spine, one folded the same way, but it goes across at the base, so it's very broad. And then a pillow for the head, which clearly is not going to be here, it's going to be here. So sorry, my feet have gone off the edge of my sticky mat, but that's so I could put this in the middle. Put your tailbone on the floor off the end of this, and you come down onto the ribs. So you have this very broad, wide support under the pelvis. And tuck and arrange and tuck and arrange so that line at the base is exactly where it needs to be, so that your sacrum can settle the way it needs to and your lumbars can extend the way they need to, and you get support that psychologically is broad. That's what we're looking for. And when you stretch the legs, you keep that spinal, that bone and joint relationship to that blanket. So buttocks on the floor, but they can be a bit further from that blanket. They could be a bit closer. So they can move toward or away until you find the lift gives you the extension of that front spine. I see what you're doing, Chaya. Now that makes your shoulders go down, and if that's the right thing, I am happy. If you have found it, then go for it. Now it is 9:50. It is technically the end of class. You just got here. I am aware of that. My instruction here in this Shabbat is for you to use this breath to connect body and mind. Use that verbal capacity which floats up all the time. It's there. Use it both by observing what floats up in response to your actions. So observe the words and understand their source, their motive, and also use your chosen words to cultivate and guide your own action. So stay there for just a few moments. I will sign out. You feel free as you are to join your palms and say namaskar, or stay as you are and just say it in your mind. Because words are a form of action. Namaskar.